Okay, I'm back after the commercial break. That was a 20-minute mark, so we do these in about 20-minute segments because I know how it is watching these. Okay, so 20 minutes, you can do it at a time. Here we have a map of world trade, or at least trade, and this is called Eastern Hemisphere, right? Africa, Europe, Asia. On the eve of discovery, so discovery of what, I'm not sure, but just prior to the 1450s, certainly before the, in a sense, discovery is a bad word, right? I borrowed this from your authors. Before really kind of the European discovery of sub-Saharan Africa, so down here off the map. But wealthy people want stuff that comes from far away, like over here, right? Silk from China, I mean the Romans, that had been the big Roman demand hundreds of years before. Spices from India, gems and other, perfumes and incense and things from the so-called Middle East. Gold from Africa, a lot of stuff that comes from far away. But to get it, you have to go through this country. This is a big country. It's called the Ottoman Empire. In the 1400s, it's either the first or second most powerful country in the world. Right? The other, the second or first country in the world at that time, most powerful, would be the Chinese. Okay, so it would be Ming China. So China and the Turks, the Ottoman Turks, most powerful country in the world. Europe, pretty weak, but there is a rising upper class. People like the Medicis who helped to fund the Renaissance at the same time, right? Or Renaissance in Italy. So you got to go through these so-called middlemen, and they were mostly men in charge of trade, if you want to get the good stuff. Unless you have kind of a long shortcut. If you go around Africa, off my map here, okay, how's that working? You can't even see my cursor, never mind. If you can somehow go around Africa and get to India, it would actually be cheaper. Right? Waterborne trade is always cheaper than overland trade, especially if you kind of cut out these middlemen who are jacking up the price. So that'll be a goal for the Portuguese. So Europeans want to expand their power and circumvent, like go around the Muslim traders of the Middle East. Middle East, you know what it means, but really that's an imperialistic term from the British in the 19th century, the 1800s, but we still use it. Right? Technology encouraged exploration because the Portuguese had designed a ship, the caravel, that could ply the waters of the Atlantic, the rough waters of the Atlantic. Portugal, an Atlantic-facing nation, kind of hard-scrabble country, kind of difficult to farm in some ways. I was there a while ago, a long time ago actually, and there were a lot of cork trees. I'm like, what kind of tree is that? Oh, it's all made of cork. Like how weird, right? And olive trees. I mean, really cool country. But the Portuguese often took to the sea and kind of farmed the ocean through fishing and developed these really sturdy ships. Okay? So they start to bump down the coast, bump of Africa, and they're really encouraged by a member of the royal family, Prince Henry the Navigator, who almost never got on a ship actually, but he would say, go down the coast as far as you can, and when you have to turn around, put a big white cross on the beach, on the coastline somewhere, and then draw the whole map and come back. And then he'd give that map to the next ship, and like, you have to go past the third cross and put up a fourth one and draw it, in the map. And then next ship, go past the fourth cross, right? So they start to go down the coast of Africa. The goal is, well, a number of things. Firstly, they pick up gold here. Gold had been traversed across the Sahara. It took months, right, by camel. Camels can't carry a whole lot of gold, right? So a lot of the gold in Europe in the Middle Ages had come from Mali. Well, here come the Portuguese. Right? Gold, ivory, which cruelly slaughtered the elephant, saw off the tusk, the big teeth, and use that for artistic things. And then human beings, right? People were enslaved. I'm going to say, in some sense, this was a more benign type of slavery. If you have to walk people across the desert, it's going to be small in number, and in a very perverse sense, right? They're rather valuable. If I wouldn't do this, please, I wouldn't do this, even though I'm from the different site. Even if I lived in that zeitgeist. But if someone was a wealthy banker in Florence, and they had servants who were of dark skin tone, that would kind of show off to their friends how wealthy they were. Look how far this slave came, right? The servant came. So slaves tend to be fairly valuable and often used as servants when, yes, bought and sold, right, in slavery in Europe and the Middle East. The Portuguese are going to make that 1,000 times worse by developing really a kind of a chattel-type slavery islands off the coast of Africa are rediscovered, and the Portuguese figure out you can plant sugar here, but damn, sugar is so tough to plant and harvest and cultivate, I guess that's planting and harvesting, and process, that they're not going to do it. They take enslaved people from Africa in large numbers, they incense their work to death in these ingenios, these sugar mills, but then you just bring in more workers, right? You can work them to death and still make a profit. Because sugar, the Europeans have such a sweet tooth, they'll pay so much for sugar. The human life becomes worth very little. This type of slavery, sadly, will be kind of cut and pasted into the Americans. I'm not going to just blame the Portuguese, right? This is a European capitalist development, right? That the product is more valuable than the human being, so what? What's going to happen is the Europeans are going to construct mentally racist notions, okay? How can you work people to death? How can, if they live long enough to have children, enslave their children and enslave their children's children? Okay, this type of chattel slavery. Well, you do it by dehumanizing the other, right? And inventing a concept called racism that, folks, is still with us, okay? If I turn on the news, if I go back to the news websites, we're going to see racism here playing out 6 centuries later. Okay? It didn't make sense 6 centuries ago. It sure as hell doesn't make sense today. Right? But we can see historically how racism is constructed. The good news there is, if it's a mental construct, we can start to deconstruct it. Okay? We know that it kind of stems from this early form of capitalist trade. All right. Wow, I had more images. They're just not showing up. I apologize. There should be something big over there. Anyway, so new ideas take root in this kind of era of Christopher Columbus. Sub-Saharan Africans had started farming later than the people of Europe, Asia, and also North Africa. What is that going to mean? It's just kind of a slower start. If you're later to start farming, your society is going to come later to creating settlements and cities and metals and so-called sophisticated forms of culture. But, so they don't have guns. I'm not sure that makes them inferior. In fact, it doesn't make them inferior. Why did the Portuguese have cannons? Because they're blowing them off at the Spanish. And the inventing weapons, I'm not sure if that really makes you, like, superior. It makes you militarily superior, but morally, I guess I have a problem with that. The Portuguese have the weapons, they have the textiles, they have the guns, so what are they trading? Here come the Portuguese ships, and they're going to African rulers on the coastline and say, hey, here's some actually iron bars, you can melt these down and make other things, give us human beings. Here's some cloth, fabric that we've woven, you don't have it in Africa like it's so nice, okay? Give these and we'll take human beings. We'll take gold, we'll take ivory tusks as well. And the sugar plantations of the Portuguese develop off the coast of Africa really form the model for chattel slavery. We'll see almost the same things on a larger scale in Portuguese Brazil, in South America. Collision in the Caribbean, or do we say Caribbean? I guess that's up to you. I'm going to have to go back in and really check my images. It takes a long time to put these slides together, and where are my images? Spanish monarchs were interested in trade and conquest. Really, they had engaged in driving out, expelling the Muslims and Jews from Spain, right? 1492, that ends. And Columbus had pitched a plan to Isabel and Ferdinand, like, hey, fund me, you can't go down Africa because the Portuguese, by the way, the Portuguese, in addition to putting crosses on the kind of shoreline of Africa, put cannons facing outward, so if the Spanish or anyone else went down the coast, they'd be blown away. So Columbus says, to solve that problem, we'll go west to get to China. The earth is this big. Well, no, actually, it's like this big. Everybody kind of knew that. I mean, any smart people knew that. By the way, Columbus wasn't the first guy to think the earth was round, okay? Any educated person knows a sphere. In fact, they knew. The ancient Greeks, well, I should say the Greeks of the Hellenistic era. So 2,200 years ago, the Greeks knew the circumference of the earth by measuring shadows. I haven't figured that out, but you people are good at math and Jack. Yes, people are good at math, figure that out. So they're like, Columbus, you're wrong, get lost. And he pitched the plan to I think the Portuguese, but certainly to the French and the English. And they say, get lost. But he comes back to Spain, and the Spanish had just finished this Reconquista. And they're like, what the hell? Let's give the guy 3 ships and support him, and there he goes. Okay? So Columbus is not some dude out on a yacht. He has the backing of the Spanish monarchy. He bumps into, not discovers, he encounters the Caribbean on October 12, 1492. He's going to claim the island. It says the island will name after the Savior, San Salvador. I've been there. It's about 30 square miles. It's a beautiful island. The people came out, apparently, to trade with him. If you go to the island, you'd probably wear a bathing suit because it's hot and it's turquoise blue water, white sandy beaches. And so the people came out not wearing much, and Columbus was just kind of shocked, right? Meanwhile, like, his people are wearing, like, they've not taken a shower, right, in months. They have, like, leather boots that are rotting around their feet and wool and big beards. And you got to think that the native people thought these stinky, light, well, I suppose they were sunburned, but these kind of stinky people getting off these big, creaky boats were somehow barbaric, right? Like, who is the real barbarian? To paraphrase a guy named Michel de Montaigne from a long time ago. Anyway, Columbus claims the islands, he finds a little bit of gold, but he kidnaps natives. Well, at least I'll bring these people back to prove that I encountered this new land. Somewhere off the coast of China, right, or India, who knows? The people are a bit darker skinned. He calls them Indians. He thinks he's near India. Wrong. Okay. Another voyage, Spanish begin to settle in the Caribbean. Columbus will eventually make his way into Cuba. Always thinking he's somewhere off the coast of Asia, never quite understanding that this is an entirely different hemisphere. The only source of wealth that he found were human beings, right? There's very little gold. Little did he see the tourist value of the Caribbean at the time, right? That wouldn't have worked, obviously. So, human beings are sold. So Columbus does some really awful things. So a question today, not being too presentist, if you remember that from the last lecture, should Columbus be honored as a hero? Should his statue be torn down? It's up to you. Right? Columbus is certainly, if he lived today, would not be a hero, but is he someone to be remembered? Yeah, maybe not for some not really good things, or for some bad things. Right? So Native Americans were forced to adopt Christianity and civilization. In fact, more and more Spanish came, and they essentially enslaved Native Americans. Now, there were some Spanish who were actually heroic. They just don't get statues. Bartolomé de las Casas was a Spanish priest who wrote letter after letter to the King of Spain, like, Dear Monarch, or Dear Your Highness, whoever we would address the King of Spain, I don't know. Your good Spanish, Spanish conquistadors are not that good. They're doing all these awful things. Yes, rape, massacre, enslavement of these children of God, the native people. And it actually had some impact. The King of Spain really couldn't control too much what was happening in the Americas, but instead of full-on slavery, they kind of resort to a part-time slavery. Well, you can make people work for you if you give them Christianity and make them live in homes and have farms. So it becomes kind of a part-time, encomienda system, kind of a part-time slavery. Pope Alexander, will confirm, the Spanish, you get this part of the globe, and the Portuguese, you get this part of the globe. And actually, they will, the Pope will kind of take a map, very accurate at the time, draw a line kind of halfway in the Atlantic, and 14, let me look at the date, not on my map. I think it was 1494, I got to look that up. Anyway, Treaty of Tordesillas. And so, the new discoveries in the Eastern Hemisphere go to the Portuguese, the so-called new discoveries in the West go to the Spanish. But, just beyond that line was Brazil. So the Portuguese are going to claim Brazil, which becomes one of the largest colonies in the Americas. John Cabot is going to say, Giovanni Caboto, right? Italian guy who takes an English name, sails for England and claims Newfoundland. Interesting name. It's a newfound land, okay? Amerigo Vespucci gets on a boat, another Italian, right? Look, the Italians were kind of out of work. Once there's trade across the Atlantic, or even once the Ottomans start bottling up trade and causing high prices by taking control of Eastern Mediterranean. A lot of Italian sailors essentially were out of work. Trade on the Mediterranean was too expensive. So trade down the coast of Africa, or eventually across the Atlantic, was more lucrative. So we get Vespucci, who begins to believe that this hemisphere is actually a different continent, and a German map maker puts Amerigo's name on the map, and here we're stuck with America. It's kind of a mistake of history, right? So the next topic we will look at, getting some of the, I'm just going to wonder what's happening to my images here. Makes for a more boring presentation, I'm sorry. On to the mainland, so moving beyond the Caribbean into Mexico, into what's now North America, including Florida. We'll get to that next time. So the first Florida ventures, Ponce de Leon, looking for the Fountain of Youth, right, in Florida. The Spanish aren't going to find much in Florida. Right? It was really tough to settle Florida. They create the first, well, I should say the first. Well, yeah, the longest established European settlement, this still survives, St. Augustine, or Augustine, if you will, in Florida, 1585. So we see the Spanish kind of all around the Caribbean. They didn't see much of value there until sugar's planted. What they want is gold, and they will begin to push inland into Mexico. Very, very dire consequences for the Aztecs. We're almost at the peak, really at the peak of their power, as the Europeans arrived and brought disease and horses and steel swords and cannon, and the Aztec native enemies, people the Aztecs had conquered, who helped the Spanish to overthrow the Aztec Empire by 1521. So that'll be a topic for Monday. Get into the discussion board on this stuff. That's how your kind of attendance will be judged. I'll put up, we'll see. I'll put up a couple questions in the thread that you can respond to, but your name should be showing up, right? So that's how I'll give you attendance and participation points for this lecture. So email me if you have any questions. You can always call me as well. And just remember, if you call me, leave not only your name but your phone number so I can call you back. I don't have my phone, right? My JCC number will email my cell phone from which I will call you back. So, all right, enjoy the weekend. We'll see you Monday via Zoom. Peace out.